We are back, boys. So in this video, I'm going to break down our entire onboarding process to launching a client, and then also what's going to happen after we launch a client, the entire ClickUp ticketing system we got, how we manage our clients at scale and everything too. Like, this is by far going to be the most valuable YouTube video you have ever watched when it comes to managing your clients for your agency. Because trust me, I have tested a ton of client management tools out there, literally everything under the sun you could think of. And I just found that using ClickUp and all the automations and everything I'm going to break down in this video is simply just the most scalable and the best overall. So yeah, boys, enjoy this video. I'm now going to show you the entire agency backend fulfillment system that we have, how it essentially works, and how we've systemized everything here on the delivery side. So clients doesn't just randomly come in here. They move through a proven, super clear process from onboarding to launch to weekly optimization here. I'm going to walk you through the entire setup we have in the project management tool, the forms we use, and how we structure communication here so fulfillment stays organized and very, very scalable. Okay, so let's get into it, boys. Before the client journey actually begins here, it all honestly really comes down to the actual media buyer who is going to be running and managing the ads for your agency. They're obviously going to be managing the ads, scripting new creatives, doing some AI video ads in there as well, and optimizing them, communicating with the sales team as well to ensure that the lead quality overall is good of these ads. And from here, we're moving on to the consideration part, which is the actual setter, because the setter is going to have intro calls that comes from the leads from the Facebook ads and all that stuff. And he's basically going to dial all the leads in the pipeline, in the hot list, all of that stuff, and convert as many of them to book in a demo call with the actual closer. All right. So this is kind of where the purchase comes in place, right? The closer is going to conduct the demo calls and close clients by collecting payment and ultimately hand them off to the client success team right afterwards. Okay. So once the new client has paid here, the closer is going to fill out that new client form when a new client signs the contract and pays for the program. Okay. We never want them to, we never want the closer to fill out this form if the client hasn't paid. All right. Paid is the number one thing that we're looking for here before we're bringing on a client. All right. And the new client form is submitted by the closer with all the details about the business, the call recording, the offer details, the name of the client. This is actually how it looks like. So they just put in the name of the closer right here. And then there's going to be questions that they need to fill out right here. I'm just going to show you quickly here how this actually works. They put in the time zone of the client and also if they came from referral or from the ads. Hit next, and then they basically pull in how much, revenue, cash collected on the call, payment plan as well. Did they pay in full? Did they finance the full thing? Did they do multiple split payments? And also the term as well. Usually we only sign people on 3 months. If the closer, sees that the prospect has a lot of fucking money, then he might pitch like some ridiculous numbers like 9, 12, maybe even 15K for 4 months. And then if the contract is signed or not, right here. And then he also pulls in the reason for signing up. So our closers use Fireflies as the call recording instead of Fathom and all those bullshit ones. And you can basically prompt it. So whenever the closer has signed someone, essentially, they can go into the call recording and just ask the AI thing, like the reason for signing up. And then it basically gives back a full paragraph about like the details about the client, why they sign up, why we're a good fit, their offer price, and if they have testimonials, like all of the stuff essentially about the client. Even if they've been burnt in the past, for example, all of that gets pulled in here, and it basically pastes that in there. And also the link to the main sales call. And also if there's any other follow-up call recordings, all of them just gets dumped in here. And here we just put next. And if there's any specific promises, guarantees, or additional info that you mentioned to the client, then we need to, keep that in mind in case the closer oversold them, for example, that we're going to do 2 funnels instead of 1, for example, stuff like that they put in there. And then once that submits, then we're going to be moving on to the next part here. Once that form right there is submitted, then there is an automation that's going to be triggered. I'm not going to show you the specific automation because it's built out in Make and it's very complex. But after the form is filled, essentially, it will automatically notify the backend team of the new client that we signed on board. It will also, or tracking software that we have to basically update the payment log of that client, when is the next coming client, for example. It will automatically add that a payment has to be made on this date and remind us to do so if the closer didn't put in a subscription, essentially. It just kind of automatically calculates into the MRR stuff and all of that junk and all of that good stuff. And the client also will be moved to the closed stage in the sales Go High Level account, which will then automatically add them to the client success Go High Level account. We have two main Go High Level accounts, one for sales and one for clients that we actually brought on board. The main reason why is just to keep everything way more organized, okay? Same thing as we have for Slack workspaces. We have two separate Slack workspaces, one that's only for clients that has general and scheduling channels for each client, obviously one for each client essentially. And then we also have an internal team Slack workspace where only the internal team actually is. It's where we keep our culture. The entire sales team in there, the entire backend team is in there, the sales team, literally everyone is in that internal one. And that way it's just keeping everything way more organized at scale as well. Because trust me, once you have like 15, 20 clients, you're gonna have like 30, 40 different Slack channels, right, in total for all of the clients essentially. And that's why you basically just want to differentiate stuff to keep it very clean and organized. And yeah, the person who just got closed as well automatically gets assigned a CSM as well, one of the client success managers. And it's automatically going to create the two Slack channels for the client, general John and scheduling John, essentially in the client Slack workspace, of course. It's also going to create their client profile in ClickUp and add them to the onboarding list, which I'm going to show you here shortly as well. And it's also automatically going to add, all the info about the lead, for example, that the closer filled out in that form and add it to the description of the client profile in ClickUp. And the new client will also automatically receive an onboarding form from us saying like, hey name, which is obviously using custom values there too. Get a link in that onboarding email saying like, thanks for signing up, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a link to the onboarding form, which they have to fill out. And that's kind of like the welcome email, you could say. And also if the contract hasn't been sent already, and the closer will send that contract after the sales call and after the client is paid, obviously. From here, the CSM is going to be notified here. So we have a Slack channel in our internal workspace on Slack that's called Sales X Client Success. And we only have client success managers and our closers in that channel. And this way, again, it just keeps things very organized. So here you can see it's a very clean and organized way for our client success managers to basically get notified whenever we have a new client who signs on board. Obviously this image here is just some random stuff that I put in here just to kind of show you guys, but it's going to be their name, email, phone, business name, lead source as well, the reason for signing up, pretty much everything they filled out in that new client form by the closer. And also it's going to automatically assign the CSM and put the name of that CSM right there. So, and this just allows us to, whenever we have clients who come in and they got super oversold, for example, and the client success manager notices that on the onboarding call with the client success manager can then go back to this channel right here and just start a thread with that person, like the closer here essentially, and just ask a couple questions, like what actually happened, what did you promise, because this client has cooked out expectations, just to get some more clarity. Okay, moving on here, the client is going to schedule an onboarding call. So the client success manager now is going to welcome the client into the program by just calling them up over the phone from the client success sub account in Go High Level. And basically just remind them to fill out that onboarding form, and they're also going to agree on a time and a date to actually do the onboarding call, ideally the same day or the day after, at least within 24 hours, I'd say, just to avoid the prospect from getting cold feet, And obviously like they're going to introduce themselves as well, like who they are, just present themselves as the ultimate authority as well, saying like, oh, yeah, I've worked with hundreds of coaches just like you, and tons of stuff like that. So whenever that onboarding call is booked in, it will automatically update a status in ClickUp essentially, because whenever the closer fills out that new client closed form, the client will automatically be appearing here, right? This is just like a test right here, but it will be under new signups. So whenever the client success manager calls them up and books in that onboarding call, the client is going to be moved from new signups to onboarding call booked completely automatically essentially. And also after the client has filled out that onboarding form, it's going to update here with like the business name. It's automatically going to assign the correct team members as well in that pod. As you can see here, it's going to automatically find the correct pod. It's going to update the date for that onboarding call. It's also going to put in the links here of the sales call recording that the closer had. And also the onboarding form submission that the new client filled out is automatically going to be linked right there. Along with that, there is a whole bunch of other automations here that we are going to dive into. But after the onboarding form is filled out, essentially, this is kind of what I mentioned, where the client fills out that onboarding form about basic info about their business. And we also have some questions here asking them like why they actually signed up. So we can just get some more data here on understanding a bit more reverse psychology, you know, like why did they decide to go with us? And that way we can double down on that and leverage that in our messaging and in our ads and all of that good stuff, okay? And from here, the onboarding form is going to be submitted, as I kind of just mentioned. And once this is submitted, it is automatically going to send a Slack notification to notify the entire team as well, and create a shared Google Drive with that specific client, and create all the necessary resources by copying templates. So we have templated documents in the backend that gets automatically added to this shared Google Drive with the client. We also have some cloud automations in the backend, whereas based on the onboarding form info and also like the sales call recording from the closer, like the transcript of that, it's automatically going to feed into a chat with Claude, like a Claude agent that's already trained on like what type of ad scripts are performing really, really well. And it's automatically going to create the ad scripts for the client. And this way, the media buyer who's assigned to this client just needs to go in and basically revision those ad scripts, making sure they're good, and just send them off to the client the same day, essentially. And this way, there's less friction in our backend. Like everything is just fully fucking automated, thanks to just AI, essentially. It's also going to update the project management tool here with link to the resources here and also some offer info. We're going to create that Go High Level sub account. And once that sub account is created in Go High Level, it's going to add the client as a new user. And it's also going to update the custom values automatically as well. So literally everything in the client sub account is automatically going to be pre-filled, essentially. So the tech specialist here has very, very little stuff to actually do. He just needs to go over here and make sure everything is good. We're going to get into that shortly here. But as I kind of mentioned, the client is now moved into the onboarding call booked stage in the ClickUp right here. And the link to that shared Google Drive as well is going to be linked right here. The time zone of the client as well is automatically going to be. The other fields are going to update accordingly here as we kind of progress through the phase. So once all of this is done, it's again going to notify the entire team, and the tech team here is going to start the A2P verification process for the client's new Go High Level sub account here. It's also going to buy a brand new domain for that client to use in the sub account, and they're basically just going to start building out the funnels, making sure the copy on the automations and the nurture automations here is fully set up, and the custom values and everything is good too. And also get them onboarded into our client tracking software. All right. Now from here, after the onboarding call, the client success manager is going to make a couple steps here just to make sure that the agreement here is fully signed off by the client. And it's also going to read through the client's onboarding form submission here just to kind of have a little refresher, and also reread any keynotes from the sales call. Obviously, the client success manager should have already kind of listened throughout some of the parts of the sales call at this point, especially the discovery section and so on and so forth. And from here, the onboarding call is pretty much just going to take place, all right? So there's 4 main goals of this call right here. One is just establishing leadership. Secondly is to build their implementation pathway. Thirdly is to build a meaningful relationship with that client. And also to complete the kickoff form, which I'm going to show you shortly, all right? So the client should leave this onboarding call thinking that I understand the constraints in my business and see a very, very clear path to success. You know, they feel like they're in the right place, they're in good hands and everything. And they really, really like who they're working with, the client success manager. They bond really, really well, essentially. And I have full confidence these guys can actually help me. And I know exactly what to do in the next 7 days before my launch call, which is usually only to record the video. That's the only thing we require from our clients, because we've been able to streamline and automate and delegate everything else outside of that, all right? So here are some steps that the client success manager is going to do on the actual call. Obviously, firstly, it's just to give them a lot of clarity on the problems that they're facing and give them solutions essentially. Also to pull up the onboarding presentation and go through that with the client. Obviously sign off the agreement as well, and then start working on the kickoff form, right? So then they're gonna get them on board Slack as well, the client, invite them over there to the client Slack workspace. Also, we're gonna grant access to their Facebook Business Manager as a partner. And after that, we get them logged into our CRM and integrate their Google Calendar. And then we also make sure the client uploads any testimonials they have, stuff like that, into the shared Google Drive folder. And a little upsell that we've kind of started to position this more as right now as well is that we tell them like, hey, we'll, send us a list of all your existing clients or the clients you've had in the past, which is usually like hundreds of them, if not thousands. And then we basically just ask them like, if they want to run like a quick reactivation campaign so they can get like really, really quick ROI on the program, because then we'll basically do like a bulk email to all of those clients they have in that list and just simply just retarget them saying like, hey, I got a new offer. Do you want to check it out? And that's just a way for them to make like a quick buck really, really quickly back. And then we also educate them on our client sales training process in the backend and get them committed to actually go through it before the next call, which is going to be the launch call. All right. So those two things are really the only things we require for the client. Firstly, just to record those ad videos the day after the onboarding call here. And secondly, it's just to go through the client's sales training course, right? After that, we also set some projections with the client on realistic ROI, what to expect in the first month. Obviously, it depends on how much the client is going to invest into the ads, but I'm going to show you that shortly as well. And then we also push some upsells here as well, like a SEO, chat widget, stuff like this. And then we also book the launch call at the end of this onboarding call essentially. So then the client success manager basically fills out the kickoff form with all the info about the business right here and also schedules the launch call. Okay, so this form basically looks exactly like this right here. Basically put in the name of the client, the name of the client's email, right? So I'm just going to walk you through how that works. Did you go through the agreement with the client? Basically, did you get it signed? Majority of the time, it should be 100% yes. Are they also on Slack now? What's the status there? Pending, refuses to use it, invited, access confirmed. And then here we basically just ask them for the access to Facebook right here. And then we basically just we send them this partner ID in the Google Meeting chat and tell them to pull up the and then we basically just tell them to add us to their Facebook as a partner. And then we also put in the daily ad spend minimum, like how much they want to be spending on these ads to get started, and also the access to the Facebook here. If obviously they need follow-up or some tech help, then the client success manager will schedule them in for a quick call with the tech team essentially to solve all of the problems that a name of the ad account here as well, and also whether the client wants to record the video ads themselves or if they want us to use some AI UGC or a real UGC person, then we kind of have that option there as well. And here they put in any notes right there. And also in terms of the CRM, did you create the sub account and connected the Google Calendar and Zoom or Google Meet? And then they also leave some notes there if it's needed. And from here, in terms of sales, we ask them if they got experience selling to cold leads. If they don't, then we kind of set the expectations here as well, that it's way harder to sell than referrals. And also their current closing rate on leads, it's usually very, very high because they're used to closing just referral leads. And also if the financing options or payment plans are available with the client, meaning it's going to be way easier for the client to be closing clients essentially when we can get them on financing. And also if they get access to the Nordic sales training course that we have in the backend that we provide our clients with. And also at this point, the client success manager should pull up the reverse engineering client goals template, which I'm going to cover in reducing churn module, how that actually works. But then they basically make a copy of this document, set projections, and then they paste the link to the projection sheet right there for that specific client. And from here, they basically just put in like the launch call date, right? So right now it's a Thursday, so it's probably going to be next Thursday. And then also call summary and action items sent to the client. They need to confirm that. And then they put in the task ID of the client right there from the onboarding list, which would be pretty much this right there, the task ID. It's automatically generated. And then they put that in there. And then they also put in the link to the actual onboarding call right there. And they submit that. And from there, the kickoff form is pretty much done. All right. So once they submit that, then the client is going to be moved from the onboarding call booked to the setup in progress. And whenever they're moved to the setup in progress here, our team is automatically going to be notified and they're going to be assigned, yeah, you can see like here, a checklist for each specific team member right there for them to basically start working. So once that is submitted, again, the tech team, the media buying team, the project manager and everything is going to basically complete all of the work essentially, revision the ad script, send them over to the client. Once the client returns the ad videos, then we might give them some feedback, if they're good or not, and then send them off to the editor by creating an editing ticket form, which I'm going to show you shortly as well. And then the tech team is basically going to set up the entire Go high level account at this point as well to make sure the availability and everything here reflects properly as they want it in the onboarding form. And the project manager here as well is make sure everything here is set up correctly and everything. Just kind of keep a little bird's eye view and also dive a bit deeper here and there into each client to make sure nothing is kind of slipping through the cracks essentially. And from here, we're going to complete the onboarding steps here. So the tech person is going to ATP verify the sub account for the client, obviously configure their calendars, build out the sales funnel, obviously fill out the custom values that are missing and just make sure everything there is good, and also test the entire system to make sure things are actually good. Also personalize their automations and everything too. The media buyer here is basically going to go into the Facebook ad account and make sure that everything here is properly set up and basically good to go essentially. And they're also going to obviously revision the ad scripts and send them over to the client. Once the client records those ads, he's going to quality assure them to make sure they're actually good and exactly the type of quality that we're looking for here for the initial ads. And once the client returns the video ads back to us, essentially, the media buyer also has to ASAP submit this editing ticket form right here with a link to the ad scripts that the client used and also the link to the raw content, basically the videos that the client recorded. So these are going to be in in the shared Google Drive folder with the client. So the media buyer basically just puts that link in there and also a link to the ad scripts, puts in the amount of videos here as well, and also the due date, which would be, for example, if we were launching the client next Thursday, it would be the day before. The editing priority as well at this point would just be normal. If, for example, it is very, very urgent, like let's say we're launching the client in 2 days or in 1 day, for example, then it needs to be super, super urgent, all right? And then any additional info here as well. This could be, for example, client want to use pics of his clients, which can be found here. Boom. This is very, very common for us, for example. They put in the next here, and then they also put in the name of the client, which list they are in, if they're either in the client onboarding or the client management in ClickUp. And then also the task ID as well of that client, submits that. Once that is submitted, they're going to automatically be added to this other list right here, which we have, which is Creative Pipeline, where only the media buyers and the editors have access to, and they're automatically going to be created a new ticket here essentially under new raw content, and then the editor is going to be automatically assigned. It's kind of 50-50 depending on their workload, because we use some AI in there as well to determine which one of these editors has the most amount of work on their plate right now. The one who has least amount of work is going to get that client's work essentially, and then it's automatically going to pull in here the client ID, assign that editor, put the priority here as well as we kind of just filled out, and also the due date right there, link to the ad scripts we just put in there, link to the raw content, and which fulfillment list the client is in as well. And whenever the editor starts editing them, they move them into the in editing right there. And once the editor is done editing the videos, is going to pull them into the needs review right here, which is automatically going to notify the media buyer who submitted that ticket. And the media buyer just have to make sure that everything is good. There's no spelling mistakes on the ad videos. And from there, it's either going to move them into revisions needed here, where a comment, for example, saying, hey, editor, you need to change this and that and this and that. And then once the editor is done with that, they basically just do like comments and stuff in here, right here. They basically just type together right here, tag each other. And then once they're happy with the end result, then they just move them into the approved. Once they're approved, they send them over to the client saying like, hey, is everything good here? And then if the client wants any revisions as well, they'll do that too before they actually move them properly into approved, all right? So that's kind of like how the creative pipeline here works. It's pretty damn simple, and it does save us a ton of time in the backend here. Now, moving on though to the next part here. Obviously, every single department here and every single team member has a quality assurance checklist to make sure that all steps have been followed and no errors will be made once the client is officially live. And this is basically what I like to call an approval ticket, essentially, where both the tech person and the media buyer need to create an approval ticket, basically recording a Loom video showing that the sub account is A2P verified, the funnel price point and the entire funnel flow overall is actually working by doing a live test after. Also on the spelling and the grammar of literally every single automation and every single text reminder that's going to be sent out to the leads here needs to be like shown in the Loom video. And also that the calendar and the availability is correct, the opt-in form is correct, the mobile view as well looks really, really good. Same goes for like the submission and appointment triggers and the pipeline and, you know, the make automations that we have set up with APIs and all of that good stuff too, actually properly firing. And same goes for showing that whenever we get a new booked appointment or a new lead, it notifies the call center in the backend and also adds that lead and appointment to our client tracking software. Right? And the media buyer also submits his own approval ticket once he is done with setting up everything for the client. You know, the edited ads is done, the campaign is set up correctly, the pixel is working and everything. And then they basically just record a Loom video on the entire campaign setup in the ads manager. The budget is correct and everything. And the landing page as well is good. You know, the URL parameters there as well is really, really important that we get right. And also the pixel and the head tracking code and the description, like the primary text of the ad and everything is also really, really good, and that there's no spelling mistakes or anything. And once that approval ticket is going to be submitted, then it will automatically notify the fulfillment manager, which has basically access to this launch approval list here in ClickUp, which is under like a ticketing space, where we can basically see the name of the approval ticket, you know, the client ID right here, who was actually assigned the priority, and whether it's a ads or a funnel ticket essentially. And then basically it's going to be created just like this. And in the description right here, it's going to be a link to that Loom video and also some additional info about the client, what's missing, what, you know, if there's anything missing, stuff like that. And if there is any revisions required here, again, the fulfillment manager is going to move them into changes required here, revisions essentially. And basically just write a comment here to that person who submitted the approval ticket and basically just tell them to fix this and that and that. And once that is fixed, then they have to record a new Loom video, send that back to the fulfillment manager. Fulfillment manager checks that, make sure it's actually correct. And then from there, they basically just move them down into approved. And then everything is basically ready to go on the media buying and also on the ads side of things right there for that specific client. And before the launch call right here, the client success manager is going to do a final check on the following, both the ads and the sales funnel, and either submit revisions, you know, if they spot early on that there's spelling mistakes, or for example, you know, there are like major obvious mistakes as well, like the headline being like a fucking full length paragraph, or that we're targeting the wrong niche, for example, because the tech specialist like mixed it up with a different client who had a similar name, and basically just submit revisions immediately. And if they ever sees that some revisions needs to be made before the launch call, then they're going to use this form right here to basically assign some client tasks right here. If the funnel changes is required, then the type of revisions needed, basically put all the info right there. Same goes for the ad creators right there. It describes everything that was right or wrong. And here as well, if there's anything other like outside of that, if it's something to do with the call center scripts, stuff like that as well, they can submit that. And then obviously they update the client status here as well, if the happiness, refund needed, Trustpilot review, referrals, client interview, and upsells. I'm going to break that down a bit shortly, but they basically just put that in right there. And then obviously they submit this basic info right here. And once they submit that, it's automatically going to create a new ticket right here saying like, you need to revision this and that, whether it's for the funnel or the ads. If it's funnel revisions needed, it's going to assign the Go High Level Tech Specialist for that specific client and create a ticket for the funnel revision. Same goes for the media buying stuff. So that's kind of how that works, right? And when it comes to the launch call with the actual client here, the client success manager is going to basically set some really, really low expectations here and prepare them for the worst case scenario. You know, there is going to be kinks and shit that goes wrong as we launch. There is going to be problems. Nothing is going to be flawless here. And basically show them like the assets that's been created in the last 7 days, the edited ad videos, the entire funnel flow as well, and also the script that the call center is going to be leveraging in the backend, calling up their leads. And After that, they book their first check-in meeting, which is usually 7 to 12 days after launch, kind of depends. Then they basically submit revisions if needed, because they basically fill out this launch form right here, where it's basically like the same info as I kind of mentioned in the other form right here, but this is specifically just for the launch call right here. So they put in the launch call recording link and any expectations, confusion they had to correct the client as well on the call. Submit that, and once that is submitted, then it's going to notify the fulfillment manager to do a final check on literally everything here, from the ads, the sales funnels, to the phone number, like the A2P stuff. And also if we are going to do like deposits for the client, it's going to connect the Stripe thing for the client's funnel and everything. And he's also going to make sure that the ads are scheduled to launch after the launch call, as soon as it's like 1 a.m. during the client's time zone, right? And if there's any errors found, he's going to reassign revisions to the necessary departments here. And you might wonder, like, why do we actually have this fulfillment manager at this part of the process? And it's simply just to eliminate room for errors in the onboarding with the tech and the ad tasks, and to make sure that everything is aligned with the client's branding needs and wants, okay? Because we don't want the client to be churning in the first month, right? So once that launch call is filled out, essentially, it's automatically going to create a notification in Slack to the team that everything is good for this client, and let's get them launched essentially. And it's also going to update the client ClickUp list, because the client is automatically going to be moved from the client onboarding list in ClickUp here and over to the client management list under the first 90 days, all right? And here as well, it's going to update a couple of fields here. For example, like the last check-in call with the client success manager, it's automatically going to update that date to be, you know, the date of the launch call of the launch form submission. It's also going to update the timestamp, the date of when the media buyer last optimized things, which is usually the at the same time of the launch form is submitted. And also whenever the next client check-in call as well is, it's going to automatically update that here, put in a date for that. And obviously the pod here is going to be pulled in from the other side of things. And the client happiness as well. This is a really, really important field that we have to basically at scale see, because here we're basically going to see each client side by side. And that way we can basically filter for which clients is the not happy to the happiest. So the client success team knows exactly who to focus on, right? Which is the ones who are not happy, concerned, or neutral. And also if any refunds is needed right here, for example, then it automatically pulls that in. The status of the ads as well. What are the actual status, whether the client is recording that we're waiting on, or the payment card issue in their ad account that we're waiting for them to solve. And if we're waiting on the editor, for example, that they're delayed, for example, or if we are actually live, right? The ad do's and don'ts here as well is going to be pulled in from the onboarding form. Same with the ad spend budget right there, the time spent of the client. Also, if we've gotten any Trustpilot reviews from the client, then we put in that right there. If we've collected any referrals, and if we've had a interview with the client, and also if we have any sort of specific upsells for them, whether that is sourcing them a closer or doing like an Instagram profile funnel upsell, just like a course that we have built out in the backend for them. And also here, it's automatically going to pull in the date we had the onboarding call with that client, the launch date, the renewal date as well is automatically going to be pulled in once we sign the client, because it's going to track in 90 days from now, essentially. So that is the same thing with the termination date as well, automatically going to update there. And also the projection sheet link, which is what the client success manager walked through with the client on the onboarding call. And also whenever everything here is launched as well, it's going to pull in all the links for the funnel right here, all 3 pages essentially, the apply page, the book call page, and the thank you page. And also a direct link to the client's sub accounts just for easy access for our team. So that is pretty much how the client management list works here. Obviously, if we've upsold the client or something, then we move them into renewed. And if the client is put on pause because, you know, let's say like their payments are failing, for example, like they're overdue on their retainer, stuff like that, then we move them into paused and add a comment and everything, of course. And if there is like a special thing that we're doing with the client, we move them into there. And churned or offboarded clients, we move them into that section right there. Okay, so that's kind of like the ClickUp list right there. Now, when it comes to the retention side of things, from here, the client success manager is going to have bi-weekly check-in calls. So like twice a month, I'd say, but he's also going to have day-to-day communication with the Slack with that client. And the media bar here as well is going to daily do some check-ins on the ads for the client, just monitoring the stats that we're pulling in and everything. And also send the client some weekly reports on the performance, how things are going, and also notify the CSM or the client if the performance is either good or really, really bad. And as the client kind of go through the entire process here and starts getting results and everything, we're going to get reviews from the client, obviously send them into the backend program, basically upsell them, and also get some referrals, right? So that's pretty much the entire onboarding to launch process right here. Now, another thing I kind of forgot to throw in here as well is that the client success manager is going to have these post check-in call forms that they need to fill in after every single check-in call with the client, where they basically just put in if there's anything changes that's needed within the funnels right here, or the ads right here, or if there's anything specific, or if there's anything else other than the funnel and ads, let's say something to do with the call center, that as well is going to be put in right there. And also they're going to update the status here of the client, like the happiness of them, if refund is needed, Trustpilot review, referrals, client interviews, if you upsell them on certain things, stuff like that as well. And then they also put in this right here. Obviously they're going to book a meeting after that meeting. So after the check-in call, they're going to book the next check-in call and also update the date here as well of when the next one is, which is automatically going to update things in ClickUp and add comments to the client's profile and everything too. And they obviously put in like the link to the check-in call recording and literally everything like that as well. That's pretty much how the post client check-in form works essentially. So yeah, boys, that was pretty much the entire onboarding process here, from closing a client to onboarding them to getting things launched to eventually upselling them in the backend.